Hello, I'm Robin Vincent and welcome to the November edition of Molten Music Monthly. Well, you join me here in my kitchen because it's that time of year again when sitting outside doing these things gets a little bit dicey. So make yourself a cuppa and sit down and let me talk you through all the new stuff that's been happening over the last month in the world of computer music and music technology. Thunderbolt has finally come of age, and that's going to be what I'm going to be talking about mostly in this edition. It's caused an awful lot of confusion in the industry, to me included, but as the dust is beginning to settle, it looks like some kind of workable thing is emerging. In other news, I'm going to be covering the illuminated keyboard wars. Imageline rewrites FL Studio Mobile for everything and everybody. Unfiltered audio gives us an alarming amount of delay. Microsoft woo us with the Surface Studio and a nice big knob. IK Multimedia believe they have physically modelled the talent of a bass player. And we have a weird sort of spongy, play-doughy sort of MIDI controller thing. Throw in some updates on what Molten Music Technology are doing at the moment, and I think that sounds like plenty. So let's get on with it. Thunderbolt on Windows has been one of those really annoying technologies that just refuses to get off the ground. It's very much like the early days of FireWire, and now we're kind of in the same situation again with Thunderbolt. Apple added Thunderbolt to the Mac in 2011, and it's since been through a couple of iterations, and now we have Thunderbolt 3 as the exclusive and only port on the new Apple MacBook Pros. Meanwhile, over on Windows, we've been struggling to get Thunderbolt 1 and Thunderbolt 2 to exist or work on the PC platform. Part of the problem has been the lack of native Windows support, and the other side of the problem is the lack of any Thunderbolt devices to run on it. Now, I've had Thunderbolt 1 and 2 running on our audio systems for quite some time, but it's only really been any use for running the Apple FireWire to Thunderbolt adapter so that you can run your older FireWire audio interfaces with it. And that sort of worked fine. But while there have been Thunderbolt audio interfaces available and more coming out, they just haven't had support for Windows. So Thunderbolt 3 comes along, which is great, but to add to the general confusion is that it shares the same port as USB 3.1. And that becomes a problem because in order to support Thunderbolt, you have to have the Thunderbolt technology behind that port. If you have a USB 3.1 port on your computer, it doesn't necessarily mean that it is Thunderbolt compatible. It's all down to the technology behind it. So seeing that port on your computer is no guarantee that it will run a Thunderbolt audio interface. You have to find that out first. So are we confused? Well, yeah, we probably should be. I mean, I was initially annoyed when the whole USB 3.1 and Thunderbolt ports were the same because you just didn't know, and the manufacturers didn't seem to know whether it supported Thunderbolt or not, or what the technology behind it was, because you were asking sort of deep level motherboard integration type questions. However, that USB-C, as it's called, port is really quite good. I mean, it's small, it's reversible, which means you don't have to do the 3 tries on a USB cable anymore, and it looks to be a good port going forward. The problem is mostly that the support for Thunderbolt through that port is often unclear. So although the whole Apple MacBook thing where they're dropping off all the old ports, so all you've got to use is tons of adapters to get all your stuff working, it does push the technology forward, which is exactly what we need if we want to get this sort of thing standardized. So the next question is then, can you add Thunderbolt to your existing system? No, you cannot. It has to be baked in to the motherboard. It has to be part of the main board of the system itself. Now, Asus, which is a popular motherboard brand, have confused this no end because they release these little fellas, which are Thunderbolt expansion cards. Now, although there's an awful lot of sort of PCB type technology on these things, the technology to run Thunderbolt exists on the motherboard that these connect into. So they have these cables that connect to a port on the board, and that's what allows it to happen. You cannot put these boards onto any other computer or any other motherboard. It simply won't work. And I think because people have seen things like this, and when they Google it, these keep coming up, that people think you can add Thunderbolt via a PCI card or a PCIe card. And you cannot. There is no such thing. At least so far. I mean, it may happen, who knows? I mean, I don't know. There may be some evil genius right now putting this sort of thing together, but as far as I'm aware, no, it's not going to happen. So in order to have Thunderbolt, you have to have that at the start. So you choose your system or your motherboard that must have Thunderbolt support built in. Now you're often going to get that USB 3.1 built in. Now let me try to show you what that looks like. So this is the Sous Thunderbolt 3 expander, and on the back here you have a bit of everything. To really mess with you, what looks like a Thunderbolt 2 connector, but it's actually a mini display port, because that also shares the same connector, but it's not the same. It's not the same technology behind it. It's got a regular USB type A slot for regular USB ports, although it is USB 3.1, and then it has the new USB 3.1 port at the top, which is Thunderbolt 3. Are you getting this? So on this card, beautifully, you've got USB type A, you've got Thunderbolt 1 and 2, which is not that, it's actually DisplayPort, and you've got USB 3.1 Thunderbolt 3 here. Yes, confusion. We love confusion. That's what we like. So why should we care about Thunderbolt 3 at all? Well, simply because it's bloody fast. I mean, USB 3 runs at 5 gigabits per second, which is cool. We like that. USB 3.1 runs at 10 gigabits per second. So that's nice. Thunderbolt 2 runs at 20 gigabits per second. Crikey. Thunderbolt 3 runs at 40 gigabits per second. So it's massively faster. The amount of data and throughput you can put through this device is fantastic. And that means that you can run a couple of 5K screens through it while powering your computer and running a bunch of audio interfaces and peripherals. It's pretty awesome. So why are we talking about it now? Well, there has finally been a Windows breakthrough with Thunderbolt. Microsoft said about a year ago that they had done the work to provide Thunderbolt support on Windows 10. However, nothing really seemed to change, so kind of not been that convinced by that. I mean, we understand that work has been done, but I don't think it's really been completed until perhaps now, because in the space of a week or two, Focusrite announced compatibility with Windows on their Clarett range of Thunderbolt audio interfaces. And then Universal Audio, along with their new UAD9 software, announced compatibility with Windows on their Apollo range of Thunderbolt audio interfaces. So these two events tell us that there has finally been a kind of a Thunderbolt Windows breakthrough, which is awesome. Now there is a key factor here, which is that the support from Universal Audio and from Focusrite is all about Thunderbolt 3. Now I know what you're thinking. You're thinking that the back of their audio interfaces is Thunderbolt 2 or Thunderbolt 1. So why do they only support Thunderbolt 3? Well, I spoke to my man at Microsoft, and he said that the engineers really wanted to focus on the most forward-looking technology, and the USB 3.1 Thunderbolt 3 connection is that technology. They didn't want to waste their time, I suppose, looking at the older Thunderbolt technology. They wanted to go straight with the most recent, and in doing so they provided native support within Windows 10, and that means that the resources that it's able to share, that when it negotiates its place within the system in order to run, that is properly and natively done within Windows. So it's not just a piece of technology which is adding on like Thunderbolt 1 and 2 and could probably more likely work. This is something that is written into the driver architecture of Windows 10 and will therefore work at its best potential. And because of this, the audio manufacturers, Focusrite, Universal Audio, are only supporting Thunderbolt 3 because that is the absolutely best chance of it working. So I have a Clarett here, a Focusrite Clarett interface. It's really rather beautiful. And I've been using this as part of the beta testing they did on the drivers. So I've had the drivers available to me for some time. Now on the back here, it is a Thunderbolt 1 connection. So how do I get this into my USB 3.1 style port? Well, you're going to have to get a bunch of adapters. So here's our USB 3.1, which is over here somewhere. Ta-da, on this card. This lovely little thing here is a Thunderbolt 3 to Thunderbolt 2 adapter. Now it ain't pretty. It's a horrible looking box. So this plugs in here, and look, it can plug in any way around. Isn't that the beauty of USB-C? That goes in there, and then our cable then goes in here, Thunderbolt 2, and then our Thunderbolt 2 cable goes into the back like so. So yeah, that's how you do it. So at the moment, until the hardware manufacturers probably release a newer version of their boxes that has a USB 3.1 on the back, see, it's really confusing because I seem to use USB 3.1 and Thunderbolt 3 interchangeably. They're not interchangeable. They are different technologies, and that's important to stress. However, it's always getting talked about in this USB 3.1 / Thunderbolt 3 way, and it's very frustrating, and I fall into the same trap myself. I'm just as guilty. So let me try not to do that anymore. So yes, my Thunderbolt 1 connection in the back of the Clarett goes into my Thunderbolt 1 to Thunderbolt 3 adapter into the Thunderbolt 3 port on the back. Now, to my knowledge, there are 3 available adapters, although this is the only one I've been able to buy so far, the StarTech one. You can just Google it, it will come up, and it costs about 80 quid. It's no cheap thing. There's another one by a company called Canex, which looks extremely similar, and as far as I can see, it looks about like $99 in the US. It doesn't seem to be available in the UK. And thirdly, there's an Apple one, which is very much like this. This is the Apple Thunderbolt 2 to Firewire adapter, which has been very, very useful on PC and Windows. But there will be, or is, a Thunderbolt 3 to Thunderbolt 2 adapter that's about 30 quid. And it is in the Apple Store. It seems to be available in a week or two over in the UK, although it seems to have already been available in the USA. There's been a lot of comments on the website about how it's rubbish and doesn't work, but as far as I can work out, most of that is to do with powering. So it seems that the Apple adapter version does not allow for powering through it. And considering that the Thunderbolt 3 connection / USB 3.1 connection is designed to have power flowing in both directions, and that's something that you can use to power devices with, that's a bit of a shame. However, I don't have one, I haven't tried one, so I don't really know what the issues are, but I will give it a go as soon as I can. And certainly, if it's 30 quid, it's a hell of a lot cheaper than these StarTech boxes, and actually looks a whole lot nicer. The final bit of annoyance is that Thunderbolt does not show up in the Windows Device Manager as anything useful. You don't know whether it's there or not until you've actually plugged in a Thunderbolt device. So when you're messing around with cards like these ones from Asus that you're plugging in, you're never really sure when it's going to work, or if it's installed correctly. I mean, you also have to install Thunderbolt software. Nothing is going to work without Thunderbolt software installed. And then the final thing you have to do is, once you've plugged something in, you have to go into the Thunderbolt software and make sure that it's enabled. Because for some reason, Thunderbolt has this kind of security thing built in where it says, no, I've no idea what this is, and you certainly can't run it. We don't recommend that you run it because it's just not right. And then you go approve, and it goes, oh, all right then. I don't know what that's about. I don't know why we need to do it, but you do. So, to summarize, maybe, Thunderbolt 1 and 2, forget it. If you have that on your system, and your current system, either on your laptop or on your PC desktop, then it may work with some Thunderbolt stuff, but however, it's not guaranteed or supported. Even though on the back of all these units, the Apollos and these, it's all Thunderbolt 1 and Thunderbolt 2. They all only support Thunderbolt 3. Thunderbolt 3 exists on a USB 3.1 connection, also called USB-C. It's like the third type of USB connection. It's good, it's small, it's reversible, it carries a lot of power, and you can run a whole load of stuff on Thunderbolt 3 over this connection. In order for Thunderbolt audio interfaces to work, the technology behind your USB-C port, behind that port, must be Thunderbolt. It cannot be just USB 3.1. That ain't going to cut it. It needs to have proper Thunderbolt 3 technology, and your motherboard will tell you whether it has or not. I mean, the current range of Asus boards with the Thunderbolt 3 adapter, they all work. Current range of Gigabyte boards, all the high-end ones, they tend to have Thunderbolt on as well. Check those out. Some laptops do. And actually, those are harder to know. I mean, we do a laptop. Our Performer Pro laptop at Molten Modular Technology does have a USB 3.1 / Thunderbolt 3 port. And it can work. I've seen it work. So we can supply that, but there was absolutely no help from the manufacturer of the laptop itself as to getting that working, and we had to do all the work ourselves. On the other hand, if you want a system for running Thunderbolt, then our new The Audio PC and our higher end system Studio Pro are both Thunderbolt 3 compatible. They both use Asus motherboards, and we can add the card and whatever arrangement of adapters you like in order to get your stuff to work. You might also like to hear that Focusrite tested and wrote and developed their drivers for the Clarett range on our computers. We supplied the test rig that they did that on. And so if you're looking for assurance and guarantees that a Focusrite Clarett interface will work, then what you need is one of our computers. It's easy. So that's that. I mean, hopefully the USB 3.1 / Thunderbolt 3 port will become the de facto standard, and hopefully we'll just have a row of those on the back of our computer or on the side of our laptops and nothing else. It's a little bit of a shame that Microsoft didn't include them in their new products, the Surface Studio and the new Surface Books, but hopefully, perhaps next year will be the year of Thunderbolt 3 where that becomes a lot more standard, because it would save all of this fapping around with adapters and bits of nonsense, and we can actually just plug stuff in without any trouble. That would be ace. So that's Thunderbolt. It's a mess, although it's becoming clearer. And I hope that's been helpful. And I hope my ramblings have kind of been helpful about it. I don't know. Maybe. Moving on then. As you may be aware, I am the foremost authority on illuminated keyboard shortcut keyboards. I have reviewed the Editor's Keys illuminated keyboard, I have reviewed the Logic keyboard with a light keyboard, and I've reviewed the Logic keyboard illuminated backlit keyboard shortcut keyboard as well. Well, just when I thought I'd put all that to bed, Editor's Keys got in touch to say that they've got a new version of their illuminated keyboard that not only illuminates things better, but also has multiple shortcuts on the keys. Now, I think I've kind of had it with keyboards. So I've asked them not to send me one because I just don't really have the time to review it. However, I did say that I would say that they do have a new version of their Editor's Key keyboard out there. However, it's not on the website as far as I can tell, but it probably will be along at some point soon. So if that's something that you like, then go and check that out. Meanwhile, I'm going to give away, yes, give away the Editor's Keys illuminated keyboard I had and the Logic keyboard illuminated keyboard for free to you for Christmas or something. I don't know. So what we're going to do is do a liking, sharing, commenting kind of exercise. So if you would like to get your hands on an illuminated Persona Studio One Editor's Keys keyboard or a Logic Keyboard Pro Tools illuminated keyboard, then all you got to do is share this video and comment below as to which one you'd like. So if this is Facebook, like it, share it, comment, I want this particular one please. Or if it's Twitter, then retweet and reply and put what keyboard you'd like on it. Or if it's YouTube, subscribe and comment which one you'd like. And I would draw them all out of a hat at the end of the month. And someone or two is going to get a nice free keyboard. Ace! Imageline are amazing. They are exciting, innovative, and they boldly go where no one else fears to tread. They have a brand new version of their FL Studio mobile app, which will be running on anything and everything. Android, iOS, Windows, Mac. They've even got a version that will run as a plugin within FL Studio Desktop. And this will actually be a proper bona fide Windows 10 app. And it will run on Windows 10 phone. Bonkers! It's a complete change to the previous version. I have played with the version previous to this version too, and it's kind of fun, it's kind of toy-like, and yeah, it's alright for an app, for a Windows 10 app, but this comes at it in a much different direction. It creates what to me looks like a proper DAW interface with proper tracks and piano roll and step sequencing and audio recording, audio editing, and it's not patronizing. It's designed to be a little bit more professional. All of the parameters and stuff you have on the internal soft synths and on the mixer channels are good and detailed. It's not treating you like an idiot. There's proper detail in there that you can edit and automate and get stuck into. I've played with it on my Surface because it is designed for touch and touchy-feeliness, and it works really well. And even the latency using the onboard sound, because Windows 10 apps can't use ASIO audio interfaces or anything like that, they can only use the onboard sound or whatever it is that's set to the default sound engine within Windows. And the latency I found on playing stuff and tapping away on stuff was actually pretty darn good, all things considered. So if you have a Windows tablet of some kind, or an Android tablet on iOS, then it's definitely worth checking out. It's not quite available, they're just ironing out the last bits, and also they released on Android first, which I think was a little bit of a mistake because Android is frankly a mess, and so they've been having to deal with the fallout of actually getting it to work on everybody's Android stuff. And so they've been busy sorting that out, and the Windows version is going to be along as soon as they can take a breath from all of that kind of support. I love unfiltered audio plugins. They're just amazing. They're really kind of shouty and grah and wow, and it's just got so much stuff in them. Anyway, their latest one is a delay. I mean, it's a crazy delay. It's a delay of craziness called the Sandman Pro, and the name doesn't really befit it. Again, the same as the dent they have for their distortion plugin. This is an angry but awesome delay plugin. It has that same sort of pink and black look to the interface, which is going gnarly at you. And you've got the wave display, and then at the bottom all of this LFO modulation stuff that you can patch in all over the place. I mean, it's just immense. You get this stuff going over here and over here. Rhythmically interesting, I think you will find. So if you were to compare it to like output movement is kind of this gentle, loving embrace of delay, which is just going all over the place, and it's moving and it's graceful and stuff. Whereas Sandman Pro is like bang, crash, boing over there, and then back over here, and I mean, two different styles, I suppose you could say. But the Sandman Pro is just lovely and amazing and a lot of fun to use, and it's $99. Go give it a try. You probably saw the new Surface Studio that was announced back in October. Looks like a lovely thing. I mean, what a complete and utter iMac killer of a box that is. You have a fold down screen, you can lie all over it, draw on it and fingers in it and stuff. I mean, it looks fabulous. I mean, it was very much dedicated towards drawing. That's what they pushed it towards, the artist and the CAD and the designer. But it could have a lot of potential for music production. Who knows? So I've made a video all about it, and you can go and check that out. The link will be down in the description or something like that. So I'm not going to go on about it now. I've also finally got my hands on a Surface Book, a real bona fide Surface Book. Microsoft have lent me one, which is awesome. So I'm now doing a series of videos all about that called Surface Session, which you'll also find on this YouTube channel. So if the Surface environment is something that interests you, then go and check those out, because I'm going to be doing a lot more on those as we go. I've already done a ton, I'm doing a ton more. The other interesting thing was the Surface dial. A nice movable knob thing, which looks like it could be very interesting indeed. Perhaps it's best suited for the Surface Studio, we don't know. It's available in the US, and I've seen that a few people have had them and have been talking about them, but they're not available in the UK, of course, because I don't know, because we're not nice or something. Who knows? So if anyone over there in the USA would like just to buy me one and send it over, then do get in touch. I'll gratefully receive it and play with it and tell you what I think. IK Multimedia, they like to get excitable about things. And with their new MODO Bass instrument, they seem to think they've invented physical modelling. Physical or acoustic modelling is this idea that rather than sampling something, you build a computer model about how something actually works. So how strings vibrate, how a body, say of a guitar, resonates, all those sorts of things. You put them together and it enables you to create extremely lifelike and realistic sounding instruments. And so IK Multimedia have produced a bass guitar. Well, 12 bass guitars. They've taken 12 bass guitars, modelled all of those, and flipping amazing. Well done. But on top of that, they also seem to think that they've sort of captured the playing of the instrument. Not just the positioning of the pickups or the thickness of the strings or the fretting or the action, but how it is actually played. And I can't quite wrap my head around that because they haven't really done that. All they've done is modelled different ways of playing it. So they've modelled how the fingers sound, or how the pick sounds, or if you play it up here or down here, or if you're slapping it. That's what they've modelled. They haven't modelled the performance. They haven't modelled the talent and all those sorts of things that they seem to put across. But, you know, regardless, they've done a bloody good job of recreating the entire bass guitar in a virtual instrument. So if that's your kind of thing, then cool. At €359, I don't think it's my kind of thing, but I have no doubt that it will get you the best possible bass sound. Now here's a weirdly wonderful MIDI controller coming out of France called the Joué, I don't know what it's called, but it's a tactile, modular and pressure sensitive MIDI controller that's coming very soon. It's designed by the person who was originally behind the Jazz Mutant Lemur, which is kind of interesting. So they've got a pedigree of good and interesting and innovative MIDI control, but this, it looks like a piece of wood, and on it you slap up to 3 kind of modules. One might be pads, one might be sort of knobby things, one might be these weird jelly-like nipples. I don't know what they're for. They had this fretboard thing, which looked really interesting. It kind of looks like Play-Doh, or it kind of looks like sort of that Strawberry Laces stringy stuff. I don't really know. But, you know, I love the idea of tactile haptic feedback from some kind of modular controller. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I like touchscreens, is because it can become any controller you like. So the idea of putting down different modules to control your changing environment is, I think, very interesting. Although I'm pretty sure we've seen this before, because last year on Kickstarter was something called Sensel Morph, and that was a similar idea. You had this pressure sensitive pad onto which you put these kind of jelly-like squishy controller templates, and you could swap them about and have different ones and have different things do the controlling that you wanted to do. So it looks to me to be kind of the same idea, but perhaps done in a more French way. I don't know. Looks interesting though. No information on when it's out or how much it will be. And the Sensor Morph one, they've promised it for Christmas, but it's still sitting there on pre-order. It's been on pre-order forever. We shall see. Last month I mentioned my new website resource called The Audio PC. Now, sadly, since saying that and announcing that and releasing what I had onto the internet, I haven't really had any time to do anything since. So it's still sitting there saying it will be ready in October, which is nice. So here we are in November and I'm no further forward. However, I will attempt to devote a bit more time to it very soon. It's going to be really useful. It's full of lots of really cool and helpful information for people who want to make music on their computers. I will get it done, I promise. In the meantime, the Audio PC as an audio PC is flying and available now at the Molten Modular Technology website. So you can buy a ready-made, gorgeous desktop computer for music production and audio recording. It's immense. Thunderbolt 3 compatible, as used by Focusrite in their testing, all those sorts of things. There's a big one, a small one, and a really small one to suit all budgets, to suit all types. Go and check it out. Well, it's all about me this month, really. I've just started another project that I've entitled Molten Modular, which is rather nice. I quite like that. And I've just kicked that website off as well. The idea is that I am thoroughly intrigued by modular synthesis, and I feel that I'm starting or embarking on a journey into it. I mean, the barriers to entry are huge. I mean, I've spent like 9 months thinking about it, talking about it, being on forums, reading, researching, and there's still a whole load of the language that I do not understand. When people are talking about it and they talk about the various modules and what they do, a lot of it is still going over my head. I mean, and I've got a degree in music technology. I kind of know about synthesis. I know these things, and yet when it comes to modular, I still feel stupid most of the time. So, although I've started this journey, I'm not entirely sure whether I'm going to get any further. I'd like to think that I have, because I believe that there's a lot of people out there who love the idea of modular synthesis, but just cannot take that first step because the information is hard, the technology is hard, and those first decisions you have to make are very tricky ones. And unless you can devote a lot of time to research, a lot of time to reading about it and watching YouTube videos, I don't think you can get very far. And so, you know, we tend to push back and say, oh, sorry, I'll just go and buy a synth, because I understand synths and synths make some kind of sense. So, I don't know. I mean, I've written a couple of articles, they're up there already. I hope to do videos and more articles on it as my journey progresses. But I'm not entirely sure whether this is a worthwhile endeavour or not. I mean, if this is something which is interesting to you, then let me know. I could really use the encouragement to know that if I do go on this journey and write about it and make videos and spend the time trying to unravel it and explain it to people, whether that will be appreciated or not. I don't really know. So let me know. Let me know what you think. I'm like, it's like last night I thought, oh, sod it, I'm just going to buy you know, a zero coast, so I'm going to buy an Erebus and be done with it and just plug some things in and make sound with them. But then I thought, you know, if I could just get one module, but then what am I going to do with one module? What's the point of one module? That's not going to do anything. That's not very modular. Anyway, so, you know, I have this conversation with myself. And the other important factor is that, I mean, you can throw £3,000 at it and you'll be sorted, but I don't have that kind of cash. So I want to do it in small little bits and pieces, difficult steps, tiny steps. Maybe it's just not possible. I don't know. So coming up in the next couple of weeks, I am getting stuck into some reviews. I am, as soon as I finish this, going to be working on my review of Yeko, the touch MIDI controller for Ableton Live. I'll then get stuck into the level 6 Y MIDI controller as well. I would like very much to do a full and proper review of the lovely Focusrite Clarett that I've got here. That's also on the cards. All these things I want to do within the next couple of weeks. So that's what I'm into at the same time as I've got the Surface Book, and I'm going to run a whole load of tests on that to see what it can do. What can it do? We just don't know. We don't know because I haven't done the test yet. I'm about to. We'll see. Hopefully next month I'll do a quick roundup in December of my, you know, recommended stocking fillers and the best bits of gear of the year. And in the meantime, if you're interested in hearing all sorts of news and stuff in between the Molten Music Technology broadcasts, then you'll find me over at gearnews.com, where I'm the synth and software writer correspondent for them, writing all of my weird opinions about stuff I have any idea about. And don't forget to share and comment on this video if you'd like to get your hands on one of those editor's keys or Logic keyboard illuminated backlit keyboard shortcut keyboards. Share it if you don't. I don't mind, you don't have to have it. So that'll do, and in the meantime, go and make some tunes.